Hey everybody, Questwise here, and welcome to part 2 of the Lore of the Megaverse series. Today we're going to be talking about the history of Atlantis and how it plays into the Palladium megaversal structure. First of all, we should probably talk about what we know about Atlantis historically. Historically, we know that Plato talks about Atlantis very, very briefly in some of his writings. He talks about it being an island nation that's, because of its sins or some sort of technological whatever, had sort of sunk below the waves of the ocean. He talks about how it had existed beyond the Pillars of Hercules. There's been a lot of debate amongst historians as to what that meant, if it ever existed at all, what he's talking about, or where it was even at. Most have come to the consensus that it's somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, and the Palladium Books takes that idea and runs with it. So at the time of Chaos Earth and the time of the rifts reignite Earth and magic and everything, Atlantis rises from the waves. The problem is that the true Atlanteans, and we're going to use this book as a lot of reference today, the true Atlanteans had sort of lost their grip, had lost their foothold on Atlantis when all these rifts began to erupt and stuff, and this Lagorth, this horrible race of slavers and drug dealers and black market racketeers, they began to sort of arrive and take over the island of Atlantis. And they currently, in the Rift's timeline, hold Atlantis under their sort of, iron claw, as it were. And their reach goes beyond just Atlantis. They reached all over North America and Europe, sending out their slavers and stuff to bring people back and to capture magical items and artifacts and bring them back to Atlantis, and part of the Splin dimensional market. And they're buying and selling and trading stuff from across the Megaverse. The Atlanteans are sort of like, they're now sort of wanderers and, vagabonds, are just sort of out there now, and they're kind of a people without a land until they come back and collect their birthright. What's interesting, and what I find most appealing about Atlanteans and about Atlantis itself, and why it's so important in the Megaverse, is that it's interesting to see their take on pyramid technology, and that they use the pyramids as focal points to create dimensional pathways. So a way to control rifts, a way to control these sort of nexus points between worlds. And they, at some point in the past, had complete control over that. That was their technology. They were great with medicine. They were great with technology and magic, and they had lost that at some point. But they had found ways to travel the universe. And they had fallen. If you read into Secrets of the Atlanteans, it talks about how their big downfall was this influx of vampires that had come and attacked their nation, and they had sort of put all their efforts into creating a force to fight against the vampires and try to wipe them out. And in fact, to this day, they still wander the Megaverse, hunting down any kind of vampiric intelligences, technology, any of that kind of stuff. Why I think they're most important is because if you look through almost all of Palladium Books' products, namely the big ones like Palladium Fantasy and Rifts, and a few of the others as well too, I think that they play a major part. I think that they're sort of a major key to how these things all sort of connect and contain themselves. If you watched the last video, you heard me mention a little bit about how I believe that those early peoples that had lived in the Yinsloth jungles in the southern part of the Palladium fantasy world, who had been sort of killed and cast out, that I believe that they were probably the first or a sect of Atlanteans that had come and lived there, because the book does mention about how they were very versed in magic and healing and arts like that, and biomancy. And so, and once they were cast out, it talks about, the historians believe that they sort of like were degraded to sort of a Stone Age technology and had just begun to wander the earth until they were able to reconnect with their their technology, and had they kind of rebuild themselves back out into what they were originally. I believe these are probably a sect of Atlanteans that had come here maybe after Atlantis had disappeared. It's kind of unclear as to where like Palladium Fantasy World sort of fits into the timeline of our Earth and Rift's Earth and Chaos Earth. But it's very possible, and I like to believe, and I sometimes like to run it in my games, that those were Atlanteans and that they had left after they had been sort of cast out of this Garden of Eden type of situation. We get this book. This is a brand new. This has just come out within the last year for Palladium Books, The Secrets of the Atlanteans, and goes into a lot of detail about how they're interconnected with all worlds, all different factions, all part of the Megaverse, and how important they are, and tattoo magic, and their ability to control pyramid technology, be able to transverse the Megaverse itself and stuff. And there's a lot of other great stuff in here too, and I want you to go out and grab this book if you don't already have it, because I want you to read about all the other cool stuff that's in here, and I think you'll be really, really pleased with what you find in here, especially if you're as excited about Atlantis as I am, and how I think and I hope that this is going to be, and at least in my games, and that's the great thing about role-playing games, and especially the Palladium Megaverse, because with the ability to sort of interchange all of those different games together, it's a great way to let your imagination sort of soar and take these ideas, like I did with the idea that the Atlanteans had once lived on Palladium Fantasy, that world, that had traversed to other places. That you can do that with a role-playing game, and you can make that part of your world. And if you think that's something interesting, please take that idea, run with it. Share your comments down below if you've done it in the past, and let me know how you do it. But I love sort of tying these sort of threads together from all the different worlds, and it makes a really, really great and fun thing. But I love the aspect of Atlantis. I love the Atlanteans. I love that this sort of like lost birthright of these amazing technological, magical people that still exists, and it's still there, and that they're slowly trying to build their way back to the glory of their empire as it was at one point. Now, if you remember in the last video, if you watched the last video, and if you haven't, please go back and check it out, because I'm doing a contest. This is the second part of the Lore of the Megaverse, but it's also the Road to Palladium open house. Coming up in April, we're going to be doing this, the Palladium's going to be doing this great thing in Westland, Michigan, which is just outside of Detroit. It's an open house, and it's a convention. It's all based on Palladium books and all of their great products. It's days and days of awesomeness. Please come out if you have a chance. Come check it out. I'll be there. I'll be running some games. And there's a special contest running right now between myself and Palladium Books. I'm going to give you the second part of the phrase, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and check out the first video. I explain it all there. I'll give you the second part of the phrase today in an 8-part series, and at the end of this 8-part series, if you can key together all of these 8 parts of the phrase that I give you and tell me what it is this phrase refers to within the Palladium Megaverse, what book it's from, what it sort of refers to, I'm going to give out some really, really cool gifts. And I was told that the gifts are going to get bigger and better all the time. So it's going to be a surprise as to what really finally comes out. But let me grab part 2 of the phrase. I'm not going to give you part 1 again, because I want you to go back and watch part number 1. But part 2 of the phrase that you're looking for is and dwarf. And dwarf. D-W-A-R-F, and dwarf. Alright, that's part number 2. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope to see you all at Palladium Open House. If you can't make it there, please comment down below, because I really want to keep you as part of this thing. I'm excited about this whole prospect. I'm excited about meeting some new friends and bumping into some old friends there and stuff as well too. And I hope to do some kind of live from the floor stuff there at the open house. So if you can't be there in person, at least you can live vicariously through my videos. But until next time, I'm Questwise, and I'm out.